Okay, hello. My name is Dola. I grew up in Nigeria. I was born in Nigeria. So I moved here about 5 years ago. Um, I'm a medical doctor. I'm married with two children. Yeah, that's me.
I'm Steph. I'm married to Gary. I've got two girls, Callie and Penny. And in my day job, I'm a community nurse.
So yeah, I'm Lara, I'm 21 years old. I'm daughter to Ajay and Maria and sister to Debs. I spend half of the year down in Cambridge where I'm currently studying at university. I've always gone to church since I was a child and I've always been a Christian by name. And my parents dedicated me when I was a baby and they made a promise to God that they'd bring me up in the faith, and I'm so grateful for that. And I think the difference for me was that externally, yes, I was going to church, but for me that meant putting up with a long journey into Liverpool, which is where I was going when I was younger, which maybe consisted of my dad lecturing me about not waking up on time for church ever, or doing maths equation quizzes and then having a nice lunch after listening to a sermon that I may or may not have been paying attention to. And that's kind of where it stopped. I didn't want God to be a part of my Monday to Saturday life. I was only really giving him half of my Sunday morning.
I've always had that, preaching or teachings from my parents about Jesus, about what he's done for us, his love for us, the grace of God and things like that. It's quite difficult when you've never known anything outside the Christian faith, because if you've had that, then you have more things to say. But I literally grew up reading the Psalms and reading the Bible, singing hymns in church, going to church, yeah. I've never had that time where I did not know about Jesus.
So when I was a kid, it was just me and my dad for a little while. He had lots of different women in his life, and sadly is an alcoholic, and so alcohol played a big part in his life. He did meet a lady who he then went on to marry, and she introduced us to the church and the Christian faith. It wasn't long before we started going to church on a Sunday, and I loved it. The people there were so kind. It felt really welcoming. I got to hear about God and about Jesus, but I don't think at that point that I really knew who God was or who Jesus was. Sadly, at home things were a little bit more turbulent. My dad and his wife just didn't really get on very well. The relationship was quite toxic, and I felt that I kind of bore the brunt of their frustrations. As a kid, you mess up, you make mistakes, but when I did, I was punished quite harshly, and so I kind of grew up with the conclusion that I wasn't good enough, I was worthless, and I felt quite lonely. Eventually my dad and his wife split, and for different reasons I went to live with a church family who were just incredible. They showed me so much love. They really were kind of walking with Jesus and showing me what a family should be like. And then I kind of ran away from home and joined the Navy, where I just put everything behind me. I rebelled. I had a string of relationships. I drank quite a lot to fit in, to feel like I belonged somewhere. And then I was made redundant, and it was like my whole life fell apart. I fell into depression. It was like my safety blanket had been taken away from me, and I just didn't know what to do with myself. And I had my first child, and that was really, really tough. I really struggled with my mental health. All those old feelings of not being good enough, not being perfect, feeling worthless and just completely lost, all kind of came tumbling back. And I was really in kind of a deep pit of despair.
So for me, not being a Christian wasn't not being aware that he existed, or in some senses I believed there was a God, but I didn't have that personal relationship with Jesus Christ. So it really didn't do anything to my life. I was just living how I always did. I think for me it was that difference between knowing about God and knowing Him. And I've been blessed right from the start. I've been to great churches, great pastors always, great Sunday school teachers. So I don't think it was that I heard anything new. It was just that I really opened my heart to what was being said, and I was actually listening to it thinking, this is for me. And I think the biggest thing was that when you don't know God, you don't know His love, you don't know His grace and His compassion, and you also don't realise how lost you are. And I think it's when things started going wrong and I couldn't control things, it wasn't up to me. It was when I was in situations where I couldn't do anything to fix it, where I was like, okay, well, I'll go to God because that's all I can do now, sort of as a last resort. But knowing that He always gave me a sense of peace, He gave me strength to get through difficult situations. It's a different kind of battle. It's knowing that God's going through it with me. And I think, just seeing that I am lost, I need Him, I can't do things by myself. And He realises that, but He just loves me so much that He wants to be there with me. And this has been a realisation that I've had at various moments of my life since I was about 14, 15, when I really saw that, I need Jesus to be saved, and I asked for salvation.
Becca Latus, who is a member of Cornerstone, sat down next to me one day at a kids' party. So both our children went to the same nursery, and I'd purposefully sat alone. I knew it was going to be busy and I was a bit anxious about going, so I didn't really want to talk to anybody, and I sat alone, and she came and said, "Can I sit next to you?" I said, "Oh, okay then." And we just got talking, and I explained, I had a day off on a Tuesday, and she said, "Well, I go to a church, and we have a group on a Tuesday for kind of parents and little ones that you can come along." And I was like, yeah, maybe, thinking, yeah, probably not. And then lots of things just fell into place. I thought, you know what, I'll come along on a Tuesday, and just immediately felt that welcome. The other members of Cornerstone that were there just kind of welcomed me in and wanted to know all about me, and I just felt this love, and I felt like I was home. It felt so like the church that I'd known growing up, and I just felt drawn to it. I felt drawn to these people, and I think now I was drawn really to the Holy Spirit in those people. Then started to come along on a Sunday, and it was like every sermon was written for me. The prodigal son came up quite a lot, and it just felt like every week was, what are you waiting for? Come back, I'm here. I'm here with open arms. Just run, come back to me. And so I did. Yeah, I confessed my sins and asked Jesus and God to come into my life. There was this light bulb moment that I'm not perfect. I'm never going to be perfect. That perfection is unachievable, but that's okay, because I'm a sinner, but Jesus has died to save me, and I need a saviour. I'm definitely in need of saving. It's transformed my life. I'm so much happier.
As an adult, I've learned that, knowing about Jesus, or, increasing your faith in Him, would help you in all rounds of your life. So you're talking about family, talking about your work, your career, also talking about how you relate with people as well. So you having that love from God would help you, love others, care about others, do things not to hurt others, which is essentially the commandment of God. So basically that's how my life has been, knowing about Jesus, how God has helped me with the birth of my children, because it hasn't been a very smooth journey for me so far. So He's literally helped, through the first and the second. They were really tough times, for my family. and he literally helped us through that. So the first one was born prematurely, and he helped us through that phase, and she's been fine, she's been perfect. I'm grateful to God for that. And I don't think that would have happened if we did not know Jesus. So, I'll put that to him. Also the birth of my second as well, God really showed himself. That's how I would put it. God really showed himself.
But I'd keep turning back, running back to my old ways, and I think knowing that I've continually rejected God, but every time he has continued to reach his hand out and say, just come home, come back. It's just knowing that, for me, it's like, how can you not just fall in love with Jesus? How can you not fall in love with God? Like, him sending his son for me to pay the price that I should be paying for the decisions that I've made and for the life that I'm living is crazy. And knowing that just by having faith in him, that's all I needed to be saved is crazy. Like, he just loves us so much. And I can't even put it into words. I don't think I fully understand still how much he loves me. But I think it was that falling in love with God and starting to have a relationship with him, wanting to know him, wanting him to be a part of my every life, of my everyday. I think, just allowing him to step into the parts of my life that I didn't allow him to step into before.
Kind of this time last year, there were times where I would sit on my kitchen floor and just think, this life is not worth living. And to have that completely turned around to, there's still struggles. Of course there's still struggles, but I'm not alone in that. Jesus is walking with me every step of the way, and I've had a really rough 6 months with kind of physical and mental health illness. And I could not have got through it without God. And my brothers and sisters in Christ that have walked through it with me. God knew I needed a community, and this is where I belong.
If what we believe is true, you just have everything to gain. And for me, I've seen a huge change. I have a different hope. I have hope outside of this world, and that really helps you get through the difficulties, knowing that there's something beyond this. It puts things into perspective. I think the first step for me would be having a look at the gospel, whether that's asking someone that you know is a Christian, or if you have access to the Bible, if you don't want to speak to someone about it, or Googling it. That's where I'd start. Look at Jesus, his life. He really set an example for us about the way we should live, but also he tells us that he is the way, the truth and the life. And I wouldn't want any other life than a life with him. If you're here today and you're not a Christian, or if you're watching this video at home and there's anything that has interested you, or anything that I've said that maybe you relate to a little bit or just want to know more about, I'd say just have a go, because you really have nothing to lose. Easter weekend is a time when we celebrate the gospel, and the gospel for me is this incredible rescue story. And I think everyone loves a rescue story. For me, that's what the gospel is. I'm that lost, vulnerable child trying to fend for myself in this scary world with really not a clue what's going on. And Jesus was that person that brought me back to God in that safe place where he can guide me. And he did that by laying down his life. Just how unconditional it is and how huge it is that God sent his only son to die for us in our place. And the hope that we don't have to be condemned to this eternal death, this eternal separation from God, which really, with the decisions that we make and the way that we live our lives, is what we deserve. But God's saying, I love you so much that I want to be with you anyway. I don't want to be separated from you. And I think, Jesus just bridging that gap is huge. And I think that's what we celebrate. Jesus not just dying, but then resurrecting. And him resurrecting to life means that we can have that eternal life with him as well.
Okay, so one of the reasons why I want to be baptized is to obey Jesus' words when he said that, his disciples should go and be baptized. It's something I've always wanted to do. That's why I just walked up Christian. I was like, I want to get baptized. It's just been that niggling in my heart.
So I held off for a little while because I didn't think I was good enough to be baptised, kind of those old thoughts of you're not good enough, you don't know enough. And then I came to church and saw a baptism, and it was like, again, what are you waiting for? You need to show everybody. And so I'm a little bit nervous, but I feel like I'm called to do this. I'm called to show everybody just how transformed my life has been, and I want to show people the good news. And if this is the way to do it, then yeah, that's what I'm going to do.
Jesus did it. He sets an example, and it seems a bit odd because you think about baptism is about sins and the forgiveness of sins, but Jesus had no sins to be forgiven. So yes, it is me saying that I'm lost, I've sinned, I want to be forgiven, and I've asked for that forgiveness from God, and this is sort of like a public show of that internal decision that I've made. Well, I know that he wants me to do it as well, but I'm not just doing it because I think it's the right thing. It's something that I really want to do. I want to be able to share that with people, and I want you as the church also to see me do this, and it not just be for today, but for it to be every day from now on, and where you see that I'm struggling and I'm lost, to hold me accountable, but also just be with me. And I'd like to also celebrate this today with all of you. Like, it's just, for me, is the best thing that's happened to me, is that I know Jesus. It's the most important thing in my life. So today is a very important day, and I'm happy that I can share it with my close friends and family, and with this church that I'd like to think is my home.